Hello and welcome to one of a series of videos showing the features of PhotoPhile, a photo management app for the Apple iPad. This video is going to go through the basic features of the Grid tab. Now, if you've ever used any kind of photo app before, then this should be very familiar to you. If you're an Adobe Lightroom user, then it should be even more familiar to you because it has many of the same features. So this isn't going to go into any detail of how to use some of the more advanced things in here. It's just a quick overview of the basics. So to start with, in the middle of the screen, we have, exactly as you'd expect, a panel of photos, the grid of photos. Now what I've done there is just scroll down to somewhere it hasn't already got the thumbnails, and it's calculating these in real time. Once they're calculated, they stay calculated unless you ask it to clear them. So these are actually moderately large photos. These are, let me see, 12 megapixel JPEGs. So it's not taking too long to come up with those. Now, one of the hidden features of this is that it will in fact work with very large images. These ones are certainly small enough for a modern iPad to deal with. They would have caused problems for the older iPads. But PhotoPhile is able to deal with much larger images than these. This is a 24 megapixel image, and as you can see I can just zoom straight into that and it will decode it. I've tested this on up to 150 megapixels and it's quite happy to deal with very, very large images, even on an iPad 1. Although, to be fair, on an iPad 1 you might need to wait a while. So the buttons along the top are for classification. If I just highlight a couple of images here by tapping on them, I can set those as 3-star, 4-star. So you can classify your own images. These classifications are saved to the image's metadata internally to PhotoPhile, and if you export them from PhotoPhile, which it is possible to do, then the classifications you give here will go with them, so they can be imported into the likes of Adobe Lightroom or other tools. You can switch that off just by tapping the stars again. The next set of tools are the flag icon. You can flag something for notice. It doesn't really do anything, it's just a different way of marking it. So you could flag them to be looked at later, you could flag them to be sent to someone, it doesn't matter. It's just a note for your own use. The next one is to flag something as rejected, and you can see that that then greys it out, and you can very easily create a filter, which I'll get to shortly, to hide any rejected photos. Next up, we have, I'll just select a couple of different photos there, we have the color labels. Now these, again, are very similar to the Lightroom color labels. You can switch them on and off, you can change colors. What do they mean? Entirely up to you, doesn't matter in the least. Again, it's just a way of differentiating different sets of photos. You can choose to set your own labels with the next one along, which looks like a little luggage label. Now those are the ones that are defined, but what you can do is set your own. So I'm just going to have one called test, and it's come up with a different color for test. You can set it, you can set it to nothing, and I'm just going to set those back to purple. Again, if you decide to export to Lightroom or sync with Lightroom, then this information is exchanged. The next tool is the sort order. Nice and simple. You just pick how you want the photos to be sorted, so that one is just whatever they turn up in. I want them to be sorted by star rating, and you can see the ones at the top there have no star rating showing, so I'm going to set them by star rating inverted. And now all of the 5-star ones come to the top. Usually though, something like date order. That's date order inverted, that's date order the right way up. Next tool is filters, so tap on the filters. I'll just show you very quickly, there is a separate video on filtering. You can add a filter on pretty much anything you'd like, so let's say I want to add a filter on purple images, and we have all the purples. You can clear it by tapping the red cross at the top of each filter. You can add multiple filters. You can save it for later use, and you can convert it into an automatic uploader which forwards things on to web services. Next buttons are simply select all and select none. And finally, on the top level we have an action menu where you can delete photos, and there's actually several different ways of deleting, which I'll come back to again in a later video. You can send photos out to various web services and social media, or you can send them to the camera roll if they're not already there. You can add to a filter, you can create your own static groups of photos where you manually add photos and come back to them later, just like a folder on a desktop. And in the case where you have made a change to the metadata in here, there is, as in that photo, a little red dot in the bottom right hand corner. You can then store those changes, which makes them permanent in the database and in the photo, or you can revert them, which is kind of like an undo feature. So I'm going to revert that and the dot goes away. So the main grid, as you've seen, you can scroll up and down, nice and simple. You can change the size of the thumbnails using the standard iOS pinch, and it will go and recalculate them if it needs to. So let's come back to that one. It doesn't clear them all automatically. If I had left it on a much larger thumbnail, then these would be recalculating on the way down. But it remembers that it has one that's suitable for that size, so it just reuses it. A single tap on a photo selects it, and you can maybe see that the last one that I'm tapping is shown slightly brighter than the rest, so that is the most selected, and that comes into play with some of the advanced options. So a single tap is what the Apple Photos app does, and boy does that get tedious when you want to delete 300 photos. So this has another way of doing that. What you can do is hold on one photo and tap on another one. So I'm going to hold on the one at the top right of the page and tap somewhere a little further down, and you can see that it's selected everything in the middle. And done that again. I'm going to switch off the middle row by doing the same thing. I'm going to hold on the leftmost and tap on the rightmost. That's switched off, the rest is switched on, so it's an extended selection tool. And that, to me, is just so much easier than scrolling through page after page going tap 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 tap. That just wears so thin. So, to the left of the main screen, you can pull a tab out which has all the collections. Collections work much like folders on a desktop would. You can have sub-collections, as this one does. If you tap on the parent collection, then you show everything in the sub-collections. You can show and hide these, so if I wanted to hide everything from the Photos app, I do a long tap on the name, and it will hide it. Long tap again to open it. So let's get that hidden. That cleans things up a little. The number to the right of the collection is the number of photos that are currently in that collection, as you might expect. Next on that list we have active filters. These are like Lightroom's smart collections. You don't add photos one by one, you tell it how to go and find them for itself. So if I wanted to pick that one, for example, this is all photos that were taken on a Canon 5D Mark III. If I just open up the filter panel, you can see that the details there, 5D Mark III, and it's actually got a date and time filter in there as well. So let's clear that. Next down are publishers. These work much like active filters, except that when they receive a photo, they forward it on to a web service. So you could use that, for example, if you were working in a studio, you using an iFi card, you receive a photo onto this and you automatically send a copy up to Dropbox, that kind of thing. And the final two items on there are static filters, which are manually added collections of photos. So that's where you want to pick explicit photos which don't have anything really in common except that you like them. So I'm going to close that panel off and pull the panel out on the right hand side, which is empty. It gets rather more interesting when you select a photo. This is all of the metadata that PhotoPhile has on the photo. This is read automatically from the image files. Any modern digital camera will fill in almost everything on here. What you typically won't get from a camera are the flags, labels, ratings, although some cameras are able to add star ratings. Width, height, megapixels, even latitude, longitude and altitude if it's available. All of these things are pretty much assigned by the camera. So let's close that one back down. And along the bottom we have the overall navigation features. On the left hand side of there we're showing that we have one of 1300 photos selected. We now have 2 selected. We now have none selected. The orange radar symbol is the iFi logo. PhotoPhile will work as an iFi receiver, and there will be a separate video done on that. When that is pulsing bright, then it's showing that it's actively receiving something from the iFi card. Then we just have the navigation buttons. The first one is the grid, as you've seen. We can come into the slideshow that way. Next is the Info tab, which is very simply showing some technical information about the app and your iPad, and it shows you details of how to download and install the Lightroom plugin if that's something that you want to use. And finally we have settings, and again there will definitely be a separate video going through the settings because there are many. So I'll come back into the grid. Hopefully this has given you a quick overview of how to use the grid, what the main gestures are, and where to find the key information about your photos, which is, after all, the point of using PhotoPhile. Thanks very much for watching.